Today's question is, what is the most embarrassing thing you've ever witnessed?
I used to work in nightclubs. I once witnessed a girl leaning against a wall, casually flirting with a guy, and as she laughed, she actually shit herself. She was wearing a white dress, and there was no hiding what had happened. The smell actually cleared the whole level of the club. She ran out crying. We had to clean poo off the floor where she had been standing. I often wonder what she is doing now. Alright, so my husband and I were driving around the city, and it was pouring outside. Absolutely pouring. We were about to pass the light rail train tracks, going in both directions, when the crossing gates came down because the light rail was approaching. One idiot in a van decided he could make it across before the gates came all the way down. He kept on driving, but he did not make it. Instead, his vehicle was now trapped between the gates. We could see from our car that this person was panicking. His life was flashing before his eyes. In his movie mind, the light trail was about to crash into the van and drag it for dozens of yards before finally stopping. So he did what anyone would do. He violently pushed the door open and ran in the pouring rain for his life. He was halfway down the street before he stopped, turned around, and noticed that the light trail was patiently waiting for him to move the vehicle. The door was still open. My husband and I just about pissed ourselves laughing. I was a sophomore in HS, so around 16, taking the last leg of my county sex ed class. It was a co-ed day, so our full gym class of about 30 kids was in the room. Topic was STDs. The teacher mentioned oral sex a few times, and I guess which diseases can be spread through it. One guy who was always pretty quiet and shy raised his hand and said, "I just don't really understand how you can get an STD from talking about sex." It took everyone, including the teacher, a few seconds to understand, but some quiet laughter came from a few students. The teacher then of course had to explain as simply as she could that oral sex did not in fact mean talking about sex. I think the stupid bylaws of the program in our county didn't allow her to fully disclose what it was. Anyway, we thought he was joking, but as he heard the laughter from everyone after getting this explained to him, he slowly put his head down and covered his face for the next few minutes. Poor guy. I felt bad, but it was hard not to laugh. At least no one directly gave him shit for it afterward. I went to a small high school, so almost everyone knew everyone else. I know you read small high school, but I mean the entire 9-12th grade student body was about 85 people at the time. 2 students, a guy and a girl, for some reason are talking mad shit to each other for weeks. No one remembers how it started. No one even asks why these two are constantly yelling or fighting with each other. So one day, the conflict escalates into its obvious logical conclusion. A dance battle. It gets scheduled after both parties, and their respective groupies apparently, decide on a date and that it'll happen during a lunch period, and how they want to do this wild thing. The whole school shows up. All 85 of us. Cue the girl, who brought out the biggest boombox and smallest piece of cardboard in history so she could do the worst version of break dancing the world has ever seen. I'm talking attempted head spins that go a full 180 degrees, crawling and writhing on the ground and saying, "What are you gonna do about it, bitch?" I'm fairly certain I recall her choice of song was Nelly's Hot in Here. She's 100% serious, which makes it even worse. The guy is completely unfazed. He's looking at her with the hardest death stare I've ever seen. It's worth mentioning at this point that this guy is essentially the class troll. He cannot stop fucking with people to save his life. So he stops the music, puts in his CD into the player, and what pops out of the speakers? That fucking traditional Hava Nagila song you hear at every bar mitzvah known to mankind. And he starts doing a Russian Cossack dance. I apologize if that entire sentence bothers anyone. His crew is losing it. The girl's crew is laughing their asses off, and the main girl is visibly pissed. Everyone agreed he won the dance battle. Was in a pool at a Euro beach resort. We'd been chatting with an old Brit tourist. He got out of the pool and went to get changed poolside. using his towel to do the discreet swimming tog shuffle. Suddenly up steps an angry Frenchman wanting his towel back. Turns out our poor retired gent had grabbed the wrong towel. There ensued a desperate tug of towel as a very stroppy Frenchman attempted to rip his towel from this poor old guy who was but naked and frantically trying to save his modesty. The old guy's grandson saved the day with an emergency towel transfer, but not before the whole pool complex had seen way too much hairy old British grandpa scrote. There was this kid in my high school that was taking karate classes. He decided he wanted to fight a kid that was bullying him after school in the town park. A shit ton of people went. He got all pumped up before the fight. Instantly, once the fight started, he began doing karate moves at the air. Once he reached the bully, the first thing he decided to do was a very flashy, spinning backhand. He missed by a mile and was knocked out immediately. I felt really bad for him. He was always known for not being able to read situations very well, and that, being his first normal fight, was just the absolute worst time to try that move out. Bullies suck. It was embarrassing for both of them. Middle school graduation dinner. One of the other students had asked ahead of time if they could sing. For whatever reason, I don't know. So, while the rest of us are sitting at our tables eating, she gets up in front of us all with a guitar and starts singing Blackbird by the Beatles. I don't think I'd ever heard her sing before. I have no idea why she wanted to. She was always one of the smartest people in our grade and achieved a lot academically, so I think maybe she thought that transferred over to musical talent. It was genuinely one of the worst things I'd ever heard in my life. She could not sing even a little. Her voice shook on every word. It cracked. She was out of tune. Every person had to stare down at their food while trying not to laugh in her face. I remember sitting next to my best friend and we just kept glancing at each other like, what the fuck is happening right now? Thinking of it now makes me laugh again, and I know that if I called up my friend right now and sang Blackbird Singing in the Dead of Night, that he would start a laugh too. It became a joke in our class. She finished Blackbird and then decided to follow it up with American Pie, which thankfully a lot of us knew the words to, and the teachers walked around encouraging us to sing together and drown her out. Part of me is like, well, fuck it. She did it. She was brave. But I do wonder if she thought she was actually good or not. So it was right after I graduated HS. I was at what would become the party where everyone would learn their limits. So we are all hammered, and this girl that my buddy likes sits next to him on the couch and lays her head on his chest. It was almost cute for a moment, but then a few seconds later her mouth opens and unleashes the first of about 20 torrents of vomit that would be spewed that night. Not all the same person. This party was a catastrophe. My friend looked like he had died inside. I used to work for a small coffee shop that had 3 locations. I had a ridiculously big crush on a woman who worked at one of the other locations. I thought she was so pretty that I literally couldn't remember how to talk around her. For example, one time on my day off I stopped by her location to get a cold brew and she was working the register and was like, "Hi Carl, how's it going?" What I wanted to respond was, "Oh, pretty good, but it's been a long week." But all that came out was, "Long?" Then I was so embarrassed I turned around and left without getting anything. Worse than that, later that summer there was a big employee barbecue at the nearby river. I finally got over my shit and had a really good conversation with her, made her laugh, all that good stuff. A little later I had to pee, and went to the porta potty only to walk in on her going to the bathroom. Freshman year in high school, the weird kid in class wet himself during the history final. It was so quiet because we were all taking the test, and then everyone in the room could hear this quiet SSSSSSSSSSSSSS sound. We all turned around, and there he was just sitting perfectly still in his chair, with a puddle slowly growing beneath him. No one said a word. When he finished peeing, it was like he snapped out of a trance. He blinked, looked and saw everyone staring at him, looked down at the lake of urine, and then sort of pushed his sneaker through it too. I don't even know. spread it around maybe in the hope that somehow that would make it better? After the test, he stayed in his seat until after everyone else had left. I'm certain he heard people laughing about it, because the moment anyone left the room, all we could do was say, "Holy shit, did you see how weird kid pissed himself? Oh my god, it was so gross." After I got in my carpool's car to leave, I saw the weird kid walking out of the parking lot. His jeans were two-tone, light blue in the front half, and the entire back half was soaking wet dark blue. This was the first semester of freshman year. Poor guy never lived it down. And this is the end of today's video. I hope you liked it, and don't forget to comment an anecdote or experience similar to the topic of the video. Leave your like, share if you like the video, and lastly don't forget to activate the little bell so you don't miss any of our daily videos. Bye-bye.